Welcome to the set, Dave Asprey.
Vishen, I'm so happy to be here for you.
So, Dave, you were just in Men's Health magazine. This was basically about a month ago. This is not how we are used to seeing a guy in his late 40s look, but this is incredible.
Especially a former 300-pound computer hacker.
Which is what makes this even more interesting. You were a 300-pound computer hacker in the early 90s.
If you look in that photo in Men's Health, you can actually see the stretch marks when I was fat. And if you would ask me the most unlikely thing ever to happen in my life, being in any magazine with my shirt off would have been very high on that list. Right. In fact, this just happened without even planning. They came to do a photo shoot and said, take your shirt off. I'm like, are you kidding? And maybe I'm still a little nervous about that, but I did it.
And not only do you look great, you're at 10.1% body fat. Yeah. To put that in perspective, if you're over 40, 16% body fat is considered excellent. Dave is at 10.1. I'm at about 14, 15. So I'm really impressed with what you're doing. I want to get there. But you look amazing, man, and so proud of you.
And it's without effort. That's the thing. When I was trying to lose weight, when I was really heavy, I would diet, I'd lose 20 pounds, I'd gain 30, and it was just always constant hunger and constant effort. I don't experience cravings and hunger, and I could skip lunch or not skip lunch, and I'm good to go. And just this kind of resilience that I didn't have in my 20s, that I have in my 40s, it's a gift.
So Dave practically coined the word biohacker. And in fact, for the 1 and 2 hours leading up to this interview, we've just been going deep. It was just personal conversations with me and Dave on how he's hacking his brain, how he utilizes stem cells. We were talking about electromuscular stimulation. There's such a wide array and body of material that you can talk about. You are one of the greatest minds in this field. In fact, the word biohacker pretty much started with you. You are the original biohacker.
Get this, Merriam-Webster's added biohacking as a new word in the English language at the end of 2018.
Amazing.
One of 800 something new words, and I'm actually in the definition.
You are.
That's another thing between having my shirt off and being in the dictionary. So you actually are now mentioned in
the Merriam-Webster dictionary.
Yeah, at least the online version.
I love that. I love that.
Print it.
And what I appreciate about Dave is he's doing all of this. And while doing this, he's the founder of a massive empire, Bulletproof Coffee. The stores are popping up everywhere. It's a growing brand, and it's doing incredibly well. I see it. You know,
thanks, Fish.
My team, when they book an Airbnb in Santa Monica, they look at where the Bulletproof cafe is in Santa Monica, and we book an Airbnb within walking distance because my team loves starting their day with Bulletproof Coffee. And I don't typically, when I'm doing these mentoring episodes, talk about people's products. Everything I mention is real. I can't get paid to endorse a product.
Yeah, this isn't.
But I start every day with Brain Octane Oil, which is one of your products.
So do I.
So, first, before we get to the topic of this conversation, which is longevity, Dave intends to live to be 180.
At least 180.
At least. And I know that sounds insane. I know that sounds insane, but consider this. Peter Diamandis has said that the world's first human beings who are going to live to be 1,000 years old might be alive today. Yeah. And they could well be in their 60s. The amount of medical breakthroughs which are happening right now to extend human lifespan is mind-boggling. Singularity University says that after 2030, very likely we'll be able to add 1 year to every year the average person lives. Think about that for a second, right? So getting to 100 is going to be easy for most of us. If you are 40 today, 40 or younger, getting to 100 is going to be easy. But what we are talking about here is 180. And this is going to be the topic of our conversation.
All right.
Now, Dave, you spoke about the 4 things that are most likely to kill us before we get to 100. Let's start there.
My next book is the story of what I've been doing for the last 20 years in anti-aging. When I was fat and when the doctors couldn't help me, I started running an anti-aging nonprofit research and education group that's been around since 1993. And I had board members who were in their 80s who were dating people half their age and just vibrant and full of life and full of energy. And I learned the stuff that makes old people young. And I pretty much had the diseases of aging before I was 30. I had arthritis since I was 14 in my knees, high risk of stroke and heart attack, pre-diabetes. And
your biology was pretty messed up when you were in your 30s.
Yeah. And so I said, I've got to hack this. So I went to people who knew how to do it, and I learned from my elders. The idea of mentoring is kind of important here. So I didn't have to discover everything because some of it existed, and so other things like bulletproof coffee, that was a new thing. Brain octane oil was new. But it was still based on the understanding that came from this lineage of wanting to live a very long time. And you go way back in history. Alchemists were about immortality. Taoism is about immortality. And you know, the search for, what was it, the fountain of youth. These are mythic legends. It's not like wanting to live a long time is a new thing. And Vishnu, a lot of people say, you know, I wouldn't want to live that long. But you know how long a 99-year-old wants to live? At least 100. So dying is just not something we're wired to do. Yet it's something that we are all going to do at some point. Even if the universe ends and that's what kills you, it's going to happen.
And here's the thing, right? When people think about living to be 100, many of us are like, we don't want to go there because the imagination, what we've been trained to see, is people who are at 100 and on a wheelchair. They can't move. Some of them are partially affected by an aging brain. They might be having Alzheimer's or Parkinson's. That's the vision, and so we don't want to get there. But what you're talking about is living to be 100 while having the body and the biology and the capabilities that you have right now in your late 40s.
That's the thing. We've got to break this idea that when you're old, you're useless.
Right.
And I mean, it sounds rough to say that. This is what a lot of people really have. And we have this picture in our head. In fact, you probably have this picture right now. And it's that there's tubes, there's monitors, there's wheelchairs, and you don't know your name. And you spend the last 20 years of your life in slow decline, suffering, and spending all of your money, and then basically dying in a hospital. That's actually not what has happened throughout all of history until very recently. What used to happen was the village elder. Like, you become old and wise and venerated, and you share your life's experience with the younger generation, who, at least those of them who are smart enough to listen, because it saves them all of the suffering. Like, human progress happens because we pass things on from the last generation to the new generation. So I spend as much time as I can interviewing people in their 80s and 90s. You know, oh, you want a Nobel Prize? You're still running a lab at 94? I think I want to pick your brain.
Right.
That was Eric Kandel, the guy who discovered neuroplasticity. And so to be able to do stuff like that, you got to first not die. And there's 4 things, and this is like the thesis of my next book. 4 things are going to kill you. They'll keep you from becoming an anti-aging guru. And one of them is Alzheimer's disease. You look at the odds, your chances of getting Alzheimer's are probably approaching 50%, depending on your gender. Women get it more than men. I've been doing a lot of work with the Maria Shriver's Women's Alzheimer's Project, because this is a gender-specific disease. Men get it, and people get more attention on men, but women get it more than men. And if Alzheimer's doesn't get you, what's going to get you? Cardiovascular disease. And if that doesn't get you, cancer. And the thing that underlies all 3 of those conditions that is rampant is diabetes, type 2 diabetes.
Right.
So the first thing you do to live a long time is don't die from one of the big 4 killers.
So you have the 4 killers: cancer, diabetes, Alzheimer's, and cardiovascular disease, right? And I'm guessing that the number one way to start avoiding these things is the food that you eat.
It is the food that you eat. And The Bulletproof Diet is a book I wrote in 2014 that really brought ketosis back into the mainstream. And the very trick that didn't work in the 70s for ketosis is that it matters what kind of fat you have. It matters what kind of protein you have.
Right.
So here's something you can do. Google Bulletproof Roadmap. And this is the whole diet on 1-page infographic. You can print it out and put it on your fridge. It doesn't cost anything. And it just tells you this protein is less inflammatory than this protein. This fat is a good fat, this fat's a bad fat. And the trick here that will change your performance right now and how long you're going to live is that there's a big list of suspect foods in the middle. And this is going to sound shocking. The foods that work for you may not work for your spouse or your best friend. And it's okay. There is no, this food is a good food. Right. And when you identify the guilty suspects in your food supply, guilty for you, it stops chronic inflammation. And chronic inflammation is a precursor to every one of the 4 killers, and it also is a precursor to diabetes.
So it's very interesting. We all know food is medicine. And those of you who want to go deeper on this topic, check out the episode with our mutual friend, Mark Hyman. We have 2 Mark Hyman episodes on this program. We all know food is medicine, but there's this twisted thing about the United States today where you're not allowed to actually state that. Explain what's going on.
So I run a sizable supplement and really food company. The number 1 selling protein bar at Whole Foods is a Bulletproof Collagen bar because it tastes good and it works. if I was to tell people what the medical research that I did not pay for about collagen or about brain octane very specifically, I would be making health claims for a food. And if you make a claim for health on a food, the official regulatory perspective is that if it has a health effect, it is a drug. So if, for instance, someone was to say coffee had a medical effect, by the way, coffee has many of them, but I won't say which ones. Because if I did, I would be saying that coffee is now a pharmaceutical substance subject to drug regulations, and then you're selling coffee as an unregulated drug. So that's why—
And you get shut down.
Absolutely, it happens over and over.
So in the United States, drug companies basically have this overwhelming power to push drugs to you, and thus preventative healthcare, which is eating healthy. It's harder for us to educate people on that because we're not allowed to say certain things on the products that we put out there.
It seems like a free speech thing, and one of the things that I learned as I was creating the company was that they said, you're no longer in the era of free speech, you're in the era of controlled speech. And I'm like, I didn't understand this. And this is why when you go to the store and you look on the back of labels, you have a hard time knowing what that food does. It's sort of, here's what's in there, it's very prescribed. But on the flip side, we have some high food safety standards in the US, and there's a reason that people in China are buying American food instead of food from China, because there are things around microbiological contamination. So the regulatory things have done good, but the labeling things are creating an unfair playing field, and it's hard to educate consumers.
Right, so what I want you guys to keep in mind is that food is medicine. Your health, your biology, even your body shape starts with food. A recent study popularized in Vox magazine suggested that 90% of your body shape is what you eat and not exercise. Mark Hyman in our mentoring episode suggests it's 80%, but 80-90, food affects your body shape and it affects your health. Dave, I want to go back to your 10.1% body fat right now. What are you eating? Because what you're eating is not only making you look good, but it's keeping away those 4 deadly diseases.
It's based on anti-aging. It's the bulletproof diet.
Okay.
And what that means is, for breakfast, I have bulletproof coffee. Now, if you don't like coffee, you're probably weak, but that's okay, you can get over that. So what you want to do then is have no sugar, no carbs, and no protein for breakfast.
By the way,
Only
Dave
fat.
was kidding there for all of you tea drinkers. Dave was kidding. It's an American thing, it's called sarcasm.
I wasn't being sarcastic, I'm kidding. It turns out that you can do it with tea, but the trick is grass-fed butter and brain octane oil. And you should Google brain octane oil. It's a special extract of coconut oil. It is much stronger than MCT oil, which I helped to popularize. And when you use this stuff in the morning, it raises your fat burning, but it doesn't raise your insulin levels, which is a big problem in type 2 diabetes. So all of a sudden, you feel really full. Someone puts the bagels in front of you or the croissants at 10 in the morning. You just don't want it. There's no willpower involved. And lunchtime comes around and you say, I guess I could eat. And for lunch, it's a plate covered in vegetables, then a small amount of grass-fed animal protein, wild-caught fish, grass-fed beef, grass-fed lamb, something like that, and a lot of fat. Guacamole, brain octane oil, more butter, olive oil, the good fats. And
now, is
all the
rice
fats
okay?
Rice is okay, but not a plate of rice. So you can have a scoop
Just a
of
little
rice.
bit of rice.
You can do it at lunch and at dinner, and I usually recommend for people whose metabolisms are working, have the rice at dinner, and this is going to help you sleep better.
Perfect. So I want to break this down for our international audience, right? Because Mindvalley's audience is 50% United States, 50% rest of the world. Basically, what this means is that in the morning, rather than have a regular breakfast, it is perfectly okay to have a cup of black coffee, no milk, no sugar, and trust me, it is easy to overcome that addiction. It takes 3 days. Black coffee, but consider adding butter to your coffee. You need to use a blender, or ghee. If you're in India, ghee is incredibly healthy.
Yes.
Right? And the reason is because they're high in fat. Now, if you are intolerant to dairy, what do you do?
Ghee is magic because almost everyone who's intolerant to dairy can have ghee, because ghee has no protein and has none of the milk sugar that causes problems. So I would say 95% of people who can't have milk are perfectly fine on ghee because it's just purified butterfat.
Right, and you know what? It's so interesting because in the 90s we were trained to believe that fat was bad.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So I grew up in an Indian family and I was avoiding eating ghee because ghee is in all Indian products because I believed it was bad. Today we know that the science, not the science, the food companies were miseducating us. The science actually says that high-fat diets are healthier for weight loss.
You wouldn't believe this, but back in the 50s, one of the American oil companies looking to sell soybean oil, canola oil, things like that into India, went in and poured diesel oil into large supplies of traditionally used oils in India, and people got sick from it, and that was part of the campaign to transform it. It's unacceptable because your grandmother in India was right. Have some ghee. It's actually a good thing.
So for breakfast, you have a cup of black coffee with ghee or grass-fed unsalted butter. If you choose butter, make sure it's grass-fed and unsalted. Now I hacked that because many people in Mindvalley start their day with Bulletproof. We actually make it in bulk in the office.
Nice. Me too.
And you know, it's not easy to get Bulletproof products globally, so we just get regular butter. We use ghee sometimes, but I sometimes hack that by using a protein shake, but I add butter and I add MCT oil to my protein shake. So again, you can modify that.
It works, but I want to warn you, MCT oil is 4 kinds of oil, and brain octane is the one that raises ketones the most.
Right.
The cheapest and most commonly available MCT oil comes from coconuts, and it's called lauric acid, and it doesn't raise ketones at all. Whereas the things that are in the triple filtered, triple distilled brain octane will raise your ketones much higher than coconut oil.
Okay, now explain to people, what does raising ketones do to you?
This is fantastic. So we've probably all heard of the ketogenic diet.
Right.
Well, you fast for 4 days and eat only bacon or only fat, essentially, a little bit of protein, a little bit of vegetables. And what that does is that causes the body to say, I've got no sugar, I better start burning my fat reserves. And when you're doing that, it converts fat into ketones. But brain octane will just automatically turn into ketones. And when ketones go up, there's 2 hormones that completely change in the body. And these are low levels of ketones. You don't have to be like a keto bro, my ketones are bigger than you. And one of them is called CCK, and you can Google this. This is the hormone that actually makes you feel full. It's called the satiety hormone. And the other one is called ghrelin, and this is the one that gives you cravings. So when I weighed 300 pounds, I was constantly thinking about food and constantly burning willpower, saying no, 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 and then I'd eat half the cookie because I just couldn't say no anymore. And when you have ketones present, hunger's gone. You're full. I could eat, but I don't have to eat, and that liberates you. And funny enough, not having breakfast is an anti-aging strategy. It's called intermittent fasting, and it's one of the things that can help you live longer. What I've done, Vishen, is I've developed metabolic flexibility I did not have when I was on the full ketogenic mode. I have an insulin sensitivity on a scale of 1 to 160. It's 1. It's perfect insulin sensitivity.
Right.
So I can actually eat sugar if I want to. I just don't because it's bad news.
Right, and so when you're eating right, the funny thing that happens is the cravings disappear. Like I cannot remember the last time I ever got hungry. I can skip dinner, I can skip breakfast. It doesn't kick in. Now, a couple of things, okay? So many people who are watching this episode, you may or you might consider watching the episode by Dr. Oz Garcia, also on this program, where we talk about intermittent fasting.
I talked to him this morning. He's a good friend.
Yeah, that's funny, right? How you and Mark Hyman and Oz Garcia were all connected. Now, Oz Garcia and I got into a debate in that episode, and the debate was basically this. If we're doing a 16-hour intermittent fast and we start our day with Bulletproof coffee, does that break the fast?
There is great debate about this. It probably does not break the fast, because the 2 big things that happen when you eat are insulin goes up. And third parties have studied Bulletproof coffee for breakfast, and it is 0 insulin. It's the only thing they could find for breakfast that did not move the insulin 1 bit.
Got it. So that would be the consideration, whether to start your day with butter in your coffee or to start your day with say a whey protein shake, right? The whey protein shake would probably cause insulin to go up, so it's broken your fast.
Yeah, whey or any kind of protein, but whey especially is very strong in spiking insulin, almost as strong as sugar for some people. So that's not to say you shouldn't have protein in the morning, but you're just not fasting if you have protein in the morning.
Got it. However, so in other words, you can take this episode and directly correlate it with Oz Garcia's episode, and if you start your day with Bulletproof coffee, that means coffee with butter or ghee, there's not going to be an insulin spike, so you can actually maintain your fast until lunch.
And there are people who say even having black coffee or just black tea affects your fast. You have to have only water for it to be a fast.
Right.
There's debate about that.
There's debate about that,
There's also something called proteolytic enzymes that are key to anti-aging. And these are the things that your pancreas makes, and in part your liver, to digest proteins. Since you've eaten no protein, all of that protein digestion capability, when you have just fat in your bulletproof coffee, it's still available, and your body will take that, and those things can go to chewing up meat in your gut, or they can go to cleaning out junk in your cells. And one of the big causes of aging, assuming you don't die from one of these 4 killers, is that you get a buildup of gunk in your cells. And that buildup is tied even to Alzheimer's disease. So that's why fasting matters. And that's why going on in fact, in the Bulletproof diet, it's something called a protein fast. If you get the infographic, Bulletproof Roadmap, in the top right corner, I tell you how to do a protein fast once a week. You eat less than 15 grams of protein a day, and it's very similar to a full fast, because the body's, what do I do with all this? I guess I should go in and resculpt the muscle in the body and all of the endothelial lining in your blood vessels. So protein is really powerful, but too much protein is bad, and sometimes having none is great.
Okay, so we want to come back to that. So we've tied this to fasting now, right? And we've spoken about breakfast and lunch. Now, a very important distinction, you can eat breakfast as a tradition, and you can eat breakfast as fuel. So I eat breakfast as fuel Monday to Friday. That means my breakfast is coffee and butter, or my breakfast is a protein shake, right, with superfoods added to it. On weekends, I eat breakfast as culture, as ritual, with my family. But Monday to Friday, my kids go to school, you know, I'm not eating with them, and so it's a different thing. So please understand that distinction. Okay, now we spoke about lunch. Now lunch, you said a little bit of rice is okay, but you want to pile on the vegetables. It's great to smear butter or ghee all over those vegetables and some protein.
Yes.
Okay, now in between lunch and dinner, do you snack?
I don't snack.
Because you don't have the hunger pangs.
And if it's a really intense day, or I just had a small lunch, or I was at a restaurant, didn't get what I wanted, I will eat a bulletproof protein bar, the collagen bars, because it's incredibly satisfying, but only if really I needed even more energy.
Right.
And I'll just tell you this, if you need to snack every afternoon, one of 2 things is true. One, your metabolism is broken and you need to fix it. The other thing that's possible is you ate wrong. Your last meal didn't work. It caused a craving, because if you cannot go 4 hours without eating, you're broken. And that means it's because you stuffed the wrong stuff in your gullet, or your metabolism didn't know how to use it.
Before I fixed my eating with WildFit, which is one of our Mindvalley programs, I had to snack every day at 4 to 5 p.m., right? After WildFit, when I got my eating proper, that disappeared. So snacking should go. Now we come to dinner. What do you do for dinner?
Dinner is a repeat of lunch, except I'm much more likely to have the rice at dinner, or sweet potatoes. And some people handle white potatoes really well. But this is another one of those suspect food things you've got to understand. Nightshade vegetables, for about 1/3 of people, cause rheumatoid arthritis. And nightshade vegetables are tomatoes, potatoes, peppers, and eggplant. So they may be really good for you, or they could be the thing that causes muscle pain, sore knees, arthritis, and inflammation, even muffin top. So how do you know? You've just got to try not eating them for a couple weeks. And that's built into the Bulletproof Roadmap when you do that. And you can read the whole Bulletproof Diet book, but it's really about, look, if you're doing this inflammatory thing every day when you're eating a plate of healthy vegetables, another thing, legumes. In some parts of the world, if your people, your ancestors have been eating them for 1,000+ years, you probably have a blood type and you probably have the digestive equipment to process those. A huge number of people, when they eat beans and lentils, and pretty much everyone when they eat grains, it causes low-grade inflammation. Can you avoid famine and starving to death with them? Yes, you can. Will you live 180 years if you eat those? Probably not. But the trick is getting enough prebiotic fiber. And that's why lentils are associated with longevity. They also cause inflammation.
Now, what time do you have dinner?
You always want to have dinner before it's dark.
Before it's dark, okay, so before 7:30, 8, all right? And then, what time do you have your lunch?
Ideally, I have my lunch at 2, but quite often, for social reasons, it's around noon, because that's when the day lines up.
Right, so you're having that's about 18 hours in between.
16 to 18 hours.
And that also puts you on an intermittent fast every single day?
No.
No.
Here's something, and especially if you are a woman listening to this, you've got to hear this. Because something is good for you, we're all tuned into this idea that, oh, let's do it every single day. It's like weightlifting. If you weightlift every day, you never recover.
Right.
So intermittent fasting is a form of stress, and it's stress that makes you stronger. But if you are jet lagged, you didn't sleep well, you had a fight with your spouse, your boss yelled at you, or you're recovering from something else, or you just ran a Spartan race, whatever it is, have some protein in your bulletproof coffee. It's a really good idea. Collagen protein is my favorite one. It's, we're one of the big manufacturers of that. But whatever the protein that works for you, have some eggs, it's okay.
Right.
And the reason you do that is that you didn't need additional biological stress that day. So intermittent fasting is a tool. I would say half the time I put protein in my coffee, and half the time I don't.
So how many days a week are you basically on a 12 to 16 hour fast?
Probably 3 or 4 days a week.
3 or 4 days a week. So pretty much like every other day. Great. So that's a really, really, really good distinction. Again, for those of you who want to go deeper into the concept of fasting as a way to increase your lifespan, check out the episode with Oz Garcia. Those of you who want to go deeper with understanding what foods to eat, check out the episode with Dr. Mark Hyman. We also have another previous episode with Dave Asprey, and you might want to check that out as well to understand deeper the essence of the Bulletproof Diet. And what do they Google to get your food list?
Bulletproof Diet Roadmap.
Bulletproof Diet Roadmap.
Yeah.
Okay, so we spoke about food. What else do we have to do to keep away the 4 deadly killers?
There's a great amount of research that we understand now about mitochondria. And these are the ancient bacteria spread throughout your body that are in charge of taking food and air and turning them into energy. If you're good at doing that, you have resilience. And if you're bad at doing that, well, you're probably going to die of one of these diseases. Here's the scary fact. 48% of people under age 40 have early onset mitochondrial dysfunction. They're on the path to one of the 4 killers. And everyone over age 40 has mitochondrial dysfunction. They call it aging. And it's one of the 7 pillars of aging that I'm covering in my next book. And my last book hit the New York Times Science list called Headstrong was all about mitochondria in the brain. If you can make those work better, it's like having a bigger battery in your phone. So that all of a sudden you're like, oh, I have enough energy in my brain because it's such an energy using organ.
Right.
Well, when you fix those so that they can do a better job, you suddenly
And
find
how do you
your
fix
age.
those?
Number 1, you got to put the right food in the system that doesn't clog it up. Number 2 is people have a problem with toxins. The longer you live, the more you live in a city, you're going to accumulate heavy metals. We have a big problem with mold toxins in the environment. You breathe these things in improperly managed buildings. The ancient enemy of bacteria is mold. Antibiotics come from mold. So if you're getting exposed to basically Mother Nature's antibiotics in your house because there's a water leak in the roof, the bacteria that run your body don't make energy as well, and you just slow down, and your risk of every one of those 4 killers goes up dramatically.
So important thing over here, your body is roughly 3 to 4% made up of bacteria. You are not 100% human. And in fact, your body has more bacterial cells than human cells. And these bacteria work in symbiosis with you and help you function as a human being. Mold affects this bacteria. Today we know that the gut bacteria actually affects your cognitive abilities, it affects your health. Simple things like Diet Cola can mess that up. And
terrible.
mold also messes that up. So let's go back to what you were saying.
All right. Your gut bacteria talk to these ancient bacteria that are embedded in your cells. They're considered to be part of you as a human, and they make a lot of decisions about how your body
And that's
is
the
going to
mitochondria.
behave. Yeah. So there's a crosstalk between the normal bacteria in your gut and these ones that are onboard part of your system. And if the ones in your gut are unhappy, the ones who make energy in your cells will be unhappy. When the mitochondria in your cells are unhappy, you get inflammation. Inflammation leads to diabetes. Diabetes raises, even prediabetes, raises your risk of all of the 4 killers. And the scary thing is, if you can't use the sugar that naturally comes in, even if you eat just some carbs, if you can't use that very well, your blood sugar levels go up. When blood sugar levels go up, it causes something called glycosylation, or advanced glycation end products. This is when sugar sticks to proteins permanently and causes them to sit there, be dysfunctional, and create free radicals. It's like when you take onions and brown them in a pan, that's cross-linking of sugars and proteins. Well, sugar in your blood does that, and you get cross-linking, which leads to arterial stiffness. Is that cardiovascular disease I hear calling? It is, right?
Right.
So keeping your blood sugar constant and keeping it low after meals is important. So if you're going to eat some sugar, and people will eat sugar, or if you're going to eat some carbs, here's the trick. 2 things will stop you from getting a blood sugar spike. One of them is fat. Ice cream has a lower glycemic index than drinking soda. It means it raises your blood sugar less because the fat slows it down, which is nice. But however, the combination of fat and sugar is really not a good thing for you. You can also have a large amount of soluble fiber, which is also considered a prebiotic. The way I got to 10.1% body fat, the only real change that I made was I added a new thing that we just created. It's not even on the website yet. It's called Bulletproof Inner Fuel. And this is a mix of 5 different kinds of prebiotics that are designed to feed your gut bacteria to cause them to make more things that help you to have control of your own inflammation.
So this is really important. I've read that probiotics are basically useless.
I
right?
wouldn't go that far.
Off-the-counter probiotics that you get from, say,
Many of them are,
Okay.
but some of them actually work. I've seen great healing in people. I've also spent probably $100,000 over the last 20 years on probiotics for myself
Right.
on this path, and many of them were useless. The problem is they get digested in the gut or they don't stick. But worst of all, especially if you're doing a higher protein or a higher fat diet, you're probably not eating enough vegetables. And then there's nothing for them to eat. So even if they would work, if they're not fed right,
So you're saying the right type of probiotics can make a big difference.
as long as they have food. And the food comes from tons of veggies, or in my case, because I travel so much,
What is that new product that you're going to be releasing?
it's called Bulletproof Inner Fuel.
Bulletproof Inner Fuel. When is that coming out?
It's coming out at the end of March.
Awesome. We'll check it out.
And what I do is I just put 2 scoops of that in my bulletproof coffee every morning, and sometimes a little bit more. It increases satiety, which is fantastic. And more importantly, I know that I have my gut bacteria working.
So you're taking care of the gut bacteria. Now, two quick questions. What makes Bulletproof Inner Fuel different from regular probiotics?
Well, this is a prebiotic. What that means is it doesn't have bacteria in it. It turns out your gut bacteria will shift radically in 24 hours just based on what you feed it. So by consistently feeding the good guys in my gut, I cause them to grow and the
Right.
bad guys to shrink.
Awesome.
I change the environment, which changes the bacteria, which changes your metabolism.
Now, the second thing is, what are we eating as part of our regular lifestyle right now that might be messing up with our gut bacteria?
The number one thing that's messing up people's gut bacteria is industrial meat. Now I gotta tell you this, if you say, oh, I'm gonna go out to lunch and I'm gonna eat some meat that is not organic or is not grass-fed, you are completely jacking up your gut bacteria. You need to stop doing that. It is bad for animals, it's destroying soil on the earth, and it will increase your risk of almost every disease. So it is simply not food if it is not organic meat. You're better off to be vegetarian or even vegan in a meal than it is to even have one meal of this. Because there are antibiotic residues that are in the meat. When you eat those things, the gut bacteria that are supposed to be thriving, they freak out. It actually kills them. It causes them to become aggressive, to make something called lipopolysaccharides, which causes systemic inflammation, which causes aging. You go to a restaurant, if it doesn't say grass-fed on there at least, or organic, you just toss it out. It's not food. And when you have that level of standard, you say, but I would starve. Here's the deal. You're not gonna starve, I'm not gonna starve because our metabolisms work. I'm happy to just have a salad at a restaurant that doesn't have appropriate things. And if we would all just make that one decision, pay more for meat and eat less of it, but still eat meat because it's important for you to thrive. If you do that, we will change the ecosystem of our planet.
You're right. 30% of land right now is used for meat production.
Yeah, and not in a good way. I live on an organic farm, Bishan. I've got 4 sheep and 2 pigs. And where the sheep go, there's beautiful grass because their job is to fertilize. They poop and they feed the soil, and the bacteria in the soil is healthy. In the parts where they don't go, the grass isn't as green. So we're creating this beautiful ecosystem, but if I was to put 5,000 sheep and feed them a whole bunch of grains that were sprayed with Monsanto products, what would happen? Well, I would be destroying the soil.
You're eating sick sheep.
Yeah. And so this is it. We've got to eat less and go to your local farmer's market. It'll change your world.
A lot of people are becoming aware of sugar, and so they're cutting down on sugar. They know how poisonous and dangerous sugar is, but they are substituting it with diet soda.
Oh, that'll wreck your gut at least as well as antibiotic meat.
Okay.
And there are studies, especially Splenda is probably the worst. Splenda is sugar, and they expose it to huge amounts of chlorine. And it's actually chemically very similar to a nerve gas, or like one of the poisons they use for war.
So aspartame, Splenda, avoid that?
You must avoid those for different reasons. Most of them
And
disrupt
Diet
your
Coke,
gut bacteria.
absolutely don't put that shit in your body.
It's not fair to pick on Coke. Any bubbly water or bubbly thing that has NutraSweet or aspartame in it is not okay. This stuff was twice rejected by the FDA's scientists as being unsafe for human consumption. And then Donald Rumsfeld, who at the time was in charge of the FDA, overruled his scientists to make it legal. And when he left, he went to A.G. Searle, the company that manufactured the stuff. So there was malfeasance in that. It is not a safe sweetener because it triggers neurons in the brain to fire until they can't fire anymore, and then they die. It's a source of major complaints to the FDA, and it wrecks your gut bacteria.
We need to really cut back on diet.
No, it's not about cutting back. Here's the deal. Don't put fake sweeteners in your body. There are plenty of healthy natural ones, and you can use stevia, you can use monk fruit, you can use xylitol, which is birch syrup, you can use erythritol, and if those don't work, have some honey. for that matter, have some sugar. It's better for you than the fake stuff.
So you're saying that Diet Cola is actually worse for you than regular cola with sugar?
Oh, way worse. In fact, it causes obesity.
Right.
Vishen,
I just read the science reports on this. Diet Cola so messes your gut bacteria, it increases obesity
and it gives
faster.
You cravings.
Faster, and that's one of the primary killers. It's one of the reasons diabetes is going through the roof.
Now, but isn't it brilliant though? Think about this. Hey, Mr. Fat Guy. Okay, I was the fat guy, right? If you just drink this stuff, you'll lose weight, but it actually makes you fat. You just created the best revenue stream ever because the people are like, it's not working, I better drink more.
Right. And they have the gal to use the word diet on it. That's what makes it.
And they're allowed to.
It's insane. Okay, so we've spoken a lot about food. What about exercise, movement?
With exercise, most people don't do what they're supposed to do. In fact, 6% of the population in the US actually exercises as much as the government recommends, but the government recommendations are based on junk science. So here's what the real science, when we understand what happens. You need to walk for 20 minutes a day. Just move around. That, according to several studies that I've cited, improves mitochondrial function. And once or twice a week for 15 minutes, do something that makes you cry. And this means either lifting really heavy things until failure as fast as you can, or it means sprinting and then laying down and panting, and then sprinting, laying down and panting. Here's what's beautiful about this vision. You can be on a conference call for 20 minutes. You can be walking with your kids for 20 minutes. This is not time taken away from your life. So we're talking 15 to 30 minutes of your life instead of an hour a day on a treadmill doing something that isn't even very effective.
Right.
When I weighed 300 pounds, I worked out an hour and a half a day, 6 days a week for 18 months. And you know what I got? I got strong and I stayed fat and I still weighed 300 pounds. And I'm like, maybe I'm still eating too much lettuce. And it's such a lie that exercise will make you thin. Just stop it. You're probably overtrained. In fact, if you're the kind of person who's performance oriented, who cares greatly and is watching this right now, what you're probably doing is you're not sleeping enough and you're exercising too much every day because you're not recovering.
Right, and this is the other big myth. So if you guys want to go deeper into the science of exercise and super slow strength training, what Dave is talking about, check out the 10X episode on Mindvalley Mentoring, where I take you to the gym with me and I show you how I exercise for about 30 minutes. Right now it's 30 to 35 minutes a week. And I'm able to I'm able to stay in incredible shape. Over-exercise and not giving enough recovery time and doing the wrong form of exercise, such as that whole hour-a-day BS, is one of the worst things you can do for your body.
In fact, in my last book, Game Changers, a summary of knowledge from 500 people in structured interviews, statistically worked down to what helps you change the world. I cited a study, 80% of people who start running end up with an injury in the first 6 months. So running long distances isn't going to make you younger, isn't going to make you live longer. It's actually going to stress your body out.
And Dr. Doug McGuff in the book Body by Science actually said jogging cannot be called exercise. It is actually bad for your body. Now I know that's a radical idea for so many people out there, but look, if you want to lose weight, don't jog, watch what you eat. Your body shape is 80 to 90% what you eat. Mindvalley went on a campaign against Nestle in Asia. Because Nestle was pitching food products to kids that were 40% sugar. And you know what they put on the cover? Sports people. They said, drink this energy drink. They didn't mention it's 40% sugar, unless you actually study the fine print. And then it's going to give you fuel for sports. What Nestle failed to say is that that drink had so much sugar that a kid or an adult who drank it would have to run roughly around 2.5 kilometers just to burn away that sugar. And of course, that running, it's probably not good for your body anyway.
That is a lot of energy because calories are how we measure energy.
Right.
So it's not fair to say calories are bad. They're not. We need calories. It's just calories that don't tweak your metabolism. And you're a parent, I'm a parent. You know what happens if I give my kids sugar? They misbehave and my quality of life goes down because my kids are tweaking all over the place. It affects your cognitive ability as well. So big lie to look out for that the food companies push is that you can take Gatorade, you can take Nestle's Milo, and then if you're exercising, you're fine. No, 90%, 80 to 90% of your body shape is what you put in, and drinks laden with sugar or artificial sweeteners are going to mess up your body and significantly increase your odds of premature aging. Exercise is actually the secondary bit.
Okay,
But
let's go on to the right exercise.
So the right exercise, we talked about it. I mean, you've got your slow movement, doing body weight exercise, lifting heavy things, and just doing it for a brief period until you can't do it again. And the body says, oh, I guess I should be ready to go at intensity. And this is why jogging doesn't work.
Right.
Animals who are resilient and survive, they can go in one step from your heart's beating and moving a little bit of blood to there's a tiger, and then one beat of the heart creates a huge amount of blood volume, and you run and you survive. When you jog all the time, you train the heart to instead always go blip, blip, blip to little bits of blood, and then if there's a tiger, oh, the heart will just beat faster, which is not effective. This is a stressed heartbeat. So what you're doing when you lift heavy things or when you sprint every now and then is you're telling the body, the parts of you that cannot bring it right now at full speed, get out of Dodge and get replaced by young things. And this is the same mechanism as intermittent fasting, and it's the same mechanism as cold showers.
Right, and this is why super slow strength training or Tabata works.
Yes, exactly, that's why. But here's why this matters for you. You can save hours every week. And this is hours of time and all of the effort that went into exercise that wasn't fun and didn't feel good and made you tired and hungry afterwards, that didn't create the biological results you wanted. There's an ROI on what you put on your plate. There's an ROI on how you exercise and move. And the investment you're making on it, is an investment of number one, your energy, number two, your time, and number three is actually dollars. And a lot of the stuff is free. Let's talk about showers.
Okay.
Now, these cells in your body, the mitochondria, the first thing they do is they make heat. So we're not reptiles, we make our own heat. What happens if at the end of your hot shower, you put cold water on your forehead and your chest? Within about 8 seconds, you'll get a strong signal from your body that says, I'm going to die. And you're going to jump out of the water. Here's the thing, you're not going to die. You know you're not going to die, but your body tells you that very strongly, and you'll get out. But if you do it again the next morning, you're going to last for about 30 seconds, and the next morning, maybe 50 seconds, and all of those times you're going to be saying, Dave Asprey's a jerk, and this is uncomfortable. But the fourth day, something magic happens, and you can Google this. It's called cardiolipin. And after 3 days of continuous cold exposure for just 1 minute, or as close as you can get, your cell membranes shift to contain more cardiolipin, which allows them to make heat more effectively and to run more efficiently. And what this means is that the mitochondria that are so weak that they can't make heat quickly, they get a signal that says die. And your body makes new young mitochondria.
And this is why cold showers are so effective.
1 minute.
Right.
And if you're worried about the cost, well, you didn't have to heat the water, so you probably saved a half a cent every morning you did this.
And it causes a certain rush in you. What is that?
Well, part of it is that simply all of the blood leaves your skin and goes to keep your organs warm, so you get a concentration of oxygenation there. And probably some adrenaline to keep you warm.
Awesome. Now, if you find cold showers interesting, feel free to Google that. There's a lot more science and research and ideas and tips on that. As we come to the end of this, I want you to talk about what you do with stem cells.
I write about stem cells in Game Changers, my last book. And
by the way, just a quick detour. Game Changers was picked by Mindvalley as one of the top 5 personal growth books in health, wellness, body, and mind for 2018. So congratulations on that.
Thank you for that.
Check it out.
And part of that is just being in chronic pain and just getting old. These take away from your high performance, and they're not necessary. So what I've done is extensive stem cells, one at a time procedures, but I decided I would just go in and do the most extensive thing ever with Harry Adelson at Docere Clinics in Park City.
Park City, Utah. And I use Harry Adelson as well.
Yeah.
And we filmed an episode with Harry Adelson in the clinic where we even got footage of him doing the same procedure he did on you, on me.
Oh, you did the whole body
stem
cell
makeover? We filmed that. So you can check out, if you want to go deeper in stem cells, check out the episode with Harry Adelson. Stem cells are powerful. Let's continue.
And what we did here is we flew in a neurologist from Johns Hopkins, and we took stem cells from my bone marrow and from my fat and purified them and put them into my spine. We threaded a cannula up the spine so that I won't get spinal stenosis, which is a really common thing when you hit your 80s. And it also increases the neurological resilience of the spinal sheath. We put it in my cerebral spinal fluid so my brain actually gets stem cells. And I'm the second person ever to get stem cells in my brain prophylactically instead of as treatment for Alzheimer's or something. partly because I've hit my head a few times, and I have a history of brain damage from mold toxins that was documented with scans from Dr. Daniel Amen. So I'm reversing all of the hits that I've taken over the years.
And you do this full body stem cell procedure once every 10 years.
Yes, but I do stem cells intravenously or in an injury every 6 months.
Every 6 months,
Yep.
okay. And do you go to Dr. Harry Adelson for that too?
I usually go to Dr. Harry Adelson, and I sometimes do other forms of stem cells around the country, but Harry is my go-to guy, especially for the big procedures.
And again, you guys can check out the episode with Harry Adelson to go deeper in stem cells. So as we wrap up, what are some final words of advice to keep away cancer, diabetes, Alzheimer's, and cardiovascular disease?
The number one piece of advice is also free. It's sleep better. And I've written most of the things you can see online about sleep hacks are echoes of the original Bulletproof sleep hacking blog things. And so I would just say Google Bulletproof sleep hacking, and you'll just get lists of things that improve the quality of your sleep. Vishen, I slept 5 hours last night, and I got 2 hours of deep sleep, and I got 2 hours of REM sleep, which is about what a 20-year-old gets in 8 hours. So I am sleeping like I'm in my 20s.
So you've optimized your sleep. And do you regularly sleep only 5 hours?
I regularly sleep 6 hours and 5 minutes for the past 2,000 plus days that I've been monitoring.
Okay, but you've optimized your sleep to be able to get you there.
I get more deep sleep and more REM sleep than most people.
What are you doing to do that?
I wear the True Dark glasses. They're glasses designed for sleep. I wear them before sleep. I take Bulletproof sleep mode.
Is that what you're wearing right now?
These are daytime. They're called Daywalkers from True Dark. These block what happens from LED lighting and fluorescent lighting on your eyes. So I have more brain energy all day long, but also my eyes aren't aging the way normal people's eyes do. My last eye exam with a high-end doctor, she said, that's weird. You can read the very finest print, the way a teenager would, and you have no signs of a reduction in flexibility. And she said, I think your supplements and your glasses are working.
Right, that's awesome.
So the glasses matter. They're called True Dark, and that's totally worth Googling.
TrueDark.com?
Yeah, TrueDark.com.
Okay.
And the sleep glasses have also eliminated...
TRU or TRUE?
TRUE.
TRUE?
Yeah, it's eliminated my jet lag. I don't get jet lag when I use those. And then I black out my room. I control the breathing. I control light sources. And just Google Bulletproof sleep hacking, and I'll tell you everything that I do. But sleeping better will make your metabolism work better. It will make you age less quickly. It's really big. And the thing you do when you go to bed is something, Vishen, I know is near and dear to both of us. And it's just gratitude. When you put your head down on your pillow, my average time to go to sleep is 3 minutes.
Right.
Because when I lay down, what am I grateful for now? And then I send gratitude. And here's the hack. I send gratitude to the people who have most wronged me. And there's studies out there that say you get about 60 times more results from meditating with compassion and kindness on someone who's wronged you and through forgiveness than doing it for someone you already love.
Through your own labs, you've shown that increases alpha wave amplitude and left-right brain coherence.
Yes.
I've been writing about my experience with forgiveness through your training for a long time.
Yeah.
Right. So just a couple of things, follow-up items for those of you. If you want to understand the science of sleep, I did a series of episodes on sleep on the Mindvalley podcast. Start with listening to Dr. Michael Bruce. He's one of the top sleep doctors, followed by Sean Stevenson, also on the Mindvalley podcast, followed by Ariana Huffington. So if you want to go really deep in sleep, listen to all three. Sleep is something I practice like a religion.
Yeah.
And it keeps me younger, healthier, and it has me functioning at my top level. Final question, Dave. How do we slow down brain aging? Because I'm starting to notice, and this actually makes me a little bit nervous, I'm starting to notice that my memory retrieval time is getting longer. I don't pull out facts as fast as I could.
Okay. There's a whole bunch of things you can do, and my book, Headstrong, is very science-based and very prescriptive, tells you all the things you can do for that. But I'm going to suggest nootropics for you.
Okay.
And as your brain ages, you actually have more synaptic pruning, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. But there's a cognitive enhancer called aniracetam, and it's one I've taken for 20 years because it's neuroprotective. ANIRACETAM. You can Google that. Google Bulletproof aniracetam. I talk about it. It's all over the internet. And what this does, it increases memory I/O. So it's the only one out there, the only one of its class, and it's a very safe substance.
Can we get it? Can we get it on the cheap at CSV?
No. In fact, it's in the gray zone in the U.S. So it's not disapproved, but it's not recognized either.
Got it.
So you basically order it online from the companies.
Aniracetam. Okay,
Yeah,
how do you spell that?
ANIRACETAM. And I make something called Smart Mode. which is a collection of all of the plant-based compounds that are shown, and it takes relatively good doses of them, that are shown to improve cognitive function. I take that every day. I took it before this interview.
Great.
And
Fantastic.
that could be a good benefit for you.
Awesome. So thank you, Dave. This was a phenomenal interview, guys. There's so many follow-up episodes to check out. Dr. Mark Hyman, Harry Adelson, Oz Garcia, the Mindvalley podcast series on sleep. So you can go really deep, and of course the 10X program on Mindvalley mentoring as well. So depending on what interested you most, or if everything interested you, dive deep into this entire thing. It'll be about 5 or 6 hours of research time, but this could radically transform your aging and your health. Thank you, Dave.
Vishen, thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that episode and you enjoyed the wisdom of Dave Asprey. Now, that episode was part of Mindvalley Mentoring, which is one of our highest rated programs on Mindvalley. For $99 a year, you get access to all the people in the world who are mentoring me through these episodes. So it's less than $1 per episode. It comes available on the Mindvalley app so you can listen on the go. And I think this is going to make a massive impact in your life. So Mindvalley's Quest platform is about going deep. You go 30 days into mastering your super brain, or 30 days into mastering public speaking. Mindvalley Mentoring is about going wide. It's about 1 hour long programs like this that when you layer into your life, really make you see life from a 360 perspective of personal growth. Every aspect of your being gets magnified. I think you're really going to enjoy this, and directly below this video you'll see information on Mindvalley Mentoring. You'll see the teachers, the episodes which are currently going to be available to you. All you got to do is click enroll, try it out for $1, and I can guarantee you this will be one of the greatest investments you have ever made in yourself.